Hello and welcome to the Community Action Project podcast. I'm Morgan Vassallo, a student at Cape Breton University, currently completing my Bachelor of Arts in Community Studies. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that this episode is recorded across diverse territories. I encourage all listeners to reflect on the Indigenous lands they are suited on. We honor the histories, cultures of Indigenous communities, past, present, and future. This podcast is part of our COMS 3100 Community Action Project. Our goal is to create space for frontline workers, people on the ground every day supporting individuals facing addiction, trauma, housing instability, and systemic challenges. These workers often take on incredible emotional labor with limited resources, recognition, or support. Today, I'm joined by an RCMP officer who works directly with vulnerable populations. Their identity will remain anonymous, and we thank them deeply for offering their voice and insights to this conversation. This episode may include themes of emotional stress, systemic gaps, and mental health challenges. If you're listening and find any part of this difficult, please feel free to take a break or reach out for support. So, I just want to remind you that everything you share today is entirely voluntary and anonymous. You're welcome to skip any question or stop at any point, okay?
Yep, perfect.
So I just want to thank you for being here today and on short notice also. Um, to start off, could you just introduce yourself a little? Obviously not by name, but what kind of work you do?
Yeah, so I'm a police officer with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police here. I've been a police officer. I'm 27 years old, from Newfoundland. So I've been in the RCMP just over 6 years now. So I got in when I was 21 years old. Started off my career, went to a community in Alberta, more centrally based. Did 5.5 years there, where I policed the community along with two First Nation reserves. And then last year there, I took a transfer, and now I'm working up north in a small remote community, fly in only. And I've been here for just over a year doing that kind of work.
Okay, awesome. What inspired you to pursue this line of work and specifically like the rural community part of it?
What inspired me? Okay, let's see here. So growing up, my father was a police officer. He did 25 years with the RCMP as well. So I was always surrounded by police officers and that kind of lifestyle. It's a super stable career. There's always going to be police officers, no matter what happens in the world. I know BC's been going through some stuff there where, they had RCMP, now they're folding and they're going to a city force. No matter what happens, we're always going to have a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great pension, with the RCMP in particular, great pension, which is, you work 25 years and then you're done. Every day in this job is something different. You're not sitting behind a desk, 8, 9, 10 hours a day reading the same thing over and over and doing the same thing every single day. You don't know what's going to happen. It could be a slow day, it could be a busy day, but everything's different, and that's something that I needed. It's got good structure, and there's like a clear purpose to my job, right? There's
Yep.
laws that are put in place, and my job is to make sure that people are following those.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clear objective of what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it, really. So those were kind of some of the reasons that I joined.
Yeah, those are good reasons. Um, I want to start with something positive as well. What are some of the most rewarding aspects of your work for you?
Okay. Most rewarding, I would say, the obvious one is we get to help people. Normally, when I would say more times than not, when people are calling the police, they got a problem and they want help, and our job is to go there and to help them. And a lot of times we get to do that. With that being said, when I was in Alberta, a lot of my work I focused on drug enforcement and taking that stuff off the streets, right? A lot of meth and a lot of fentanyl down there. And my job was to target those individuals, take the drugs off the street, which kill hundreds of thousands of people a year. So that's very rewarding when you get to,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of when you put 8 9 months into a file and you're doing all sorts of cool stuff and you get to take that guy off the road. That's
Yep.
pretty rewarding. Along with that, when you get more service, there's always new people coming in. So being able to be some sort of a role model for the new guys and the gals coming into the force, that's something that is pretty rewarding. I like that. I like doing that kind of stuff. Obviously, with not so much up here because I'm only working with one or two fellers or ladies, but when you're in those bigger detachments, you make lifelong memories with these guys. You go through stuff and you go through stuff together, and the friendships, right? The friendships that you make with these people, no matter where life takes you. We're moving around every couple of years, but lifelong friendships
Yeah, the bonds you make, I bet, are unbelievable.
are crazy. They are crazy.
um, on the other side of my previous question, what kinds of challenges do you see most often when working with vulnerable populations?
So I would say that the biggest challenge that we're faced with is probably drug and alcohol addiction.
Hmm.
Uh, we see it, that starts pretty young. You don't want to. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, but people get into the drugs and the alcohol when they're super young, and that continues and throughout their whole life. And we see that the effects that has on families, on friends, on all sorts of stuff. Uh, Mental health crises, we deal with those all the time. People when they're at their worst, when they're violent, they don't like us, they don't like where they are. They'll do anything to get away. I've seen that. Uh, we see domestic violence, child abuse, all that kind of stuff, and then when when you're in a bigger spot, you'll be exposed to everything from car accidents to fatals, lots of death and murders from time to time as well. So
Yeah,
some challenges for sure, right? And when you go to those for your first time, it's pretty difficult.
I would. Yeah, I can't even imagine. The mental health and addictions portion of it, do you find that worse in rural communities or like cities more? Because
Yeah,
you said you're
yes,
in central.
definitely. I find the alcohol abuse a lot. It's the biggest issue up north in particular for sure.
Mhm.
Like I would go out on a limb that saying a lot of the people in these communities are suffering from either mental health concerns or alcohol abuse,
Yeah, I also
and
grew
pretty
up in a
severe as well.
yeah, I grew up in a rural community myself, and I agree with you,
Yeah.
100%. Um, how do these challenges affect your own mental health, workload, or sense of being supported in your role?
Oh, geez. My mental health probably took a hit pretty early on in my career,
Hmm.
but I didn't realize it, and I put it aside. And with that, how I dealt with it was I decided to work more. I
Hmm.
worked a lot. I worked hard, and all I did was really work. Um, Finally, at about 4.5 years in, I think I realized from friends and family telling me that I've changed,
Yeah,
and I went and spoke to a psychologist, and I got diagnosed with PTSD
yeah.
um, from the job, and that was hard. Going through that process, actually speaking to someone about what was going on. My workload was extremely. I had a lot of work on the go
Yeah.
in Alberta, like lots of files. We were working short, but the thing is, and a lot of people don't realize is it doesn't matter how many guys are working. People are still going to call the police, right? So if there's only two of us working and we get 60 files in one night, well, then we got 30 files each, and they can be ranging from, car accidents to domestics, charge files, all sorts of stuff. So the paperwork and the work overload was crazy. I was putting in lots of overtime, and all I was doing was working.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, you get exposed to stuff like I mentioned before, those
Yeah.
car accidents. And I was 22 years old, and I'd never seen a dead body, but by the time I was 24, I had seen hundreds.
Yeah.
So it was hard, yeah. And like I said, PTSD, it's real.
Hmm.
And I didn't think it would affect me, the job, but it certainly has.
I can't even begin to imagine at all. Um, do you feel that, like, adding on to that, that there's, you said you spoke to a psychiatrist, but do you feel there's adequate mental health or emotional support available to you from your role? Like not you reaching out on your own, but like your your workforce like supporting you, someone in your
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Like, I had to go out and get it on my own,
yeah.
and nobody from management ever came to me and offered it.
Mhm.
Now they say that there's some stuff there, but like if you need help, but nobody and everyone knew what each person was going through where I was, but nobody ever, from a management standpoint, nobody ever stepped up, asked if we were okay, or instructed us to go get help, right? So it was there, but like I said, I had to kind of search it out on my own,
You
and
have to look for it, yeah.
that was one of the hardest things I've done in my life. I think, every file I've went to, I've been to some pretty sketchy stuff, but
Mhm.
one of the hardest things I think I've ever done in my life was reaching out on my own and
And
doing that first step.
that is the hardest part, right? And if I
Yeah,
feel if you had someone maybe it's when you're ready, but if you had someone offering it to you, it might be a little different. Make it a little
yeah.
easier. And that kind of answers my next question about how supported you feel by your organization or employer during times of high stress or emotional fatigue. So that kind of answers my question, I
Yeah,
think.
and I don't shy away from it anymore. I used to, but I don't feel supported
Hmm.
when it comes to that stuff at all.
Yeah. And that's why we're doing this because we like we see that and we think you should be. So that's why we're doing this project, really.
Yeah, and that's one of the first things. Like, just going off the question earlier, where you asked about why I got into this and what kind of things do I like to do. That's one of the first things that I tell these new people coming in is, you know, even if you don't feel like you need to talk to someone now on day one, get it set up.
Yeah.
Because if I had had that person that I had been talking to for years about my job before, all this stuff hit me, it would have been a lot easier to
Hmm.
explain what was going on. But I basically had to dump 4.5 years of trauma onto somebody and work with that person for a long time.
Hmm.
So yeah, I tell people right away now, get talking right away. It's important. And if
Hmm.
you want, the way I look at it is when I join this, and I won't be the same, but you should be when you join any police force at a young age, at an old age, doesn't matter. You should be the same or better when you finish.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I won't be the same or better. I will be worse.
Hmm.
And that's a tough thing to swallow, really.
Yeah. Well, this question, kind of in the same ballpark. What formal supports are available to you that I know you said you had to seek them out yourself, but like employee assistance programs or peer support, mental health training, paid time off, are they accessible or helpful at all?
Yeah, so you can get paid time off. Basically, you have to be diagnosed with like PTSD or something like that, and you have to see there's an RCMP doctor, and they'll put you, if they don't feel like you should be working, they'll put you on like a paid leave. So that is available, which is good.
Hmm.
And then they work with you to get you back to work, right? And if
Hmm.
that takes sometimes that takes years,
Yeah.
and the RCMP works with you through it. So that's good. But just the initial support is the only thing that I'd change.
Yeah.
Getting that initial, because like I said, even with that, I know a couple guys that have went through some traumatic things. Everyone handles it differently, right? And it's that first step that's not available. Once you get the ball rolling, if you need time off, yeah, they'll give it to you, and it's paid, and we're taken care of that way. But it's just that
Yeah.
initial step. It's causing some hurdles.
So the initial support, like, is it different in rural or under-resourced areas? Like, does that impact your ability to access professional support or workplace resources?
I would assume, I haven't dealt with anything because I still do all mine remotely now, right?
Yeah.
So, but if I was, and this is a guess, I could be completely wrong on this,
Hmm.
but I would say that the timeline to get that initial appointment with the force doctor is going to be quite a bit longer being
Yeah.
up here.
Yeah.
Because I can't just down in Alberta, I could just drive there and get in pretty quick, right?
Hmm.
But I'm sure up here it's going to have to be an online sort of thing, and there's going to be a time frame with that. That's me guessing. I could be completely out to lunch there and wrong, but
Yeah.
that would be what I would think.
And
So I
online
don't
is,
know, which is also a problem, I guess, right?
yeah,
That's
exactly.
another
Like,
problem. I should probably know the answer to that one.
but not even that you should know the answer. I don't think. I think it's that it should just be there for you because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
still
that is
there.
true.
You're
Hmm.
you still are still should be able to get that support just as easily there as you could in Alberta.
Yeah,
I
I
th-
would agree with that.
I think. Um so in like a smaller close-knit communities, privacy and stigma can sometimes make things harder. Have you experienced that?
Uh, I haven't, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I thought that the stigma behind like mental health and privacy was actually a little bit bigger in the detachments that have more members,
Yeah.
and that could be a member thing, right? Spreading
Mhm.
stuff around, or the stigma behind going off because you're suffering from some sort of mental health issue, and then you get people talking about that in the office. I've never heard of anything like that happening in the small communities where there's a stigma behind it. Everyone that I've worked with up here has been super supportive and open about this kind of stuff.
That's great. Like in
Yeah.
the community, like say vulnerable populations, do you find there's that stigma like outside of like your coworkers?
Uh, I haven't experienced that yet. No, I
Okay.
haven't.
That's good.
It might be here, but like I said, I haven't experienced it, which is a
Yep.
positive thing.
Um, so looking at your role more broadly, what kinds of supports or resources do you wish were available? I know we kind of just discussed that about um that doctor being there.
Yeah, I wish that the police forces around the country would implement some sort of mandatory wellness check-in, maybe even twice a year, every 6 months, because we have like a health assessment that we have to do every 5 years.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't think that's not enough. And I can tell you, a lot can happen to you in 5 years, as it happened to me. That's I think that's embarrassing that they check in on you every 5 years for like a health assessment. I think that it should be every 6 months. There should be someone reaching out to
Yeah.
each and every police officer, even if it's just a hey, how you doing? And I say, you know what, I've had a good 6 months. I'll talk to you again in 6 months. But just that contact with us,
Yeah, five
I
years.
think that would be the biggest thing.
5 years is very broad timing for
Yeah.
mental health. A lot can happen in a week, right?
Yep, you are right. You are right. A lot can happen in a day in this job, and
Exactly,
it
yeah.
does, right? 12 hours is a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure it takes one call, right?
Yeah.
Um, do you feel comfortable talking openly about mental health or work-related stress with your coworkers or supervisors? I know you said that you don't really feel that stigma or anything, but
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good question. When I first got in to the force, I definitely did not feel this way.
hmm.
I did not feel comfortable talking to anyone about anything, and I actually was of the opinion that we signed up for this job, and there's going to be consequences, and mental health problems are a part of that. Now, my opinion has drastically changed, and I think it's just after what I've gone through. I think that it's very important to talk to people.
Hmm.
And coworkers understand. Management sometimes are a little bit out of the loop, but I think that it's very important to talk to your colleagues, and I do, and I feel perfectly fine with it. I don't feel like I'm being judged, and yeah, I mean, other guys might have other opinions about that, but I
That's
feel good
great.
doing it.
What do you personally do to cope or care for your own mental health or and well-being, like whether it's on the job or off?
Uh, so like I said, I speak to somebody
Hmm.
every 2 weeks.
Yep.
That's something that I do. I try and live a healthy lifestyle, working out, going to getting the right amount of sleep, having a good
Yep.
diet. I think that's pretty important. And you do those couple things along with speaking with someone, and that's worked wondrous for me. That's pretty much the four things that I'm pretty religious about.
That's great. What's something that you wish the public better understood about the realities of being a frontline worker?
Oh, with the public. So I think something that the public doesn't always, or I know that they don't always understand, is what we as frontline workers, doesn't matter if it's a police officer, firefighter, or somebody working in an ambulance or health center, what we see and what we go through every single day. All of those professions I just mentioned, we see people when they're at their absolute worst, and majority of people, like let's say a traumatic accident, people are running away from that situation, and all of us are running toward it. So while
Mm-hmm.
people are trying to get away, we're the ones that are going in there, and we had to deal with the consequences of mental health concerns and everything that comes with that after. So I think a little bit more patience with all of us would go a long way, and they have no idea what we were exposed to 10 minutes before we
Mm-hmm.
get to their call, right? So like just a little bit more of a general understanding, and from time to time a little bit nicer, if that's I
A
guess
little
that's the,
more,
the easiest way I could put it.
a little more
We
compassion and
dedicate,
empathy, maybe.
yeah, exactly, because we dedicate our entire lives to this, 25, 30, sometimes even longer, to serving the public. It's not an easy job, right? And sometimes it's a thankless one.
That's great. That's a great answer. I think compassion and empathy is definitely something that I
Yeah,
think
those were the
people
words I was
need.
looking for.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Anything you think is important for this conversation or for people just to hear?
Well, it doesn't really matter. Like we're talking about, policing and frontline work and stuff now, but I don't know who's going to hear this. But check in on your employees. It doesn't matter if it's a police officer or a financial advisor. You never know what someone's going through,
Mm-hmm.
and checking in on people. Just every now and then, how you doing, or anything on your mind. You never know, that question could spark a whole conversation, and it could save someone's life, right? So
Yeah.
I see it a lot in my job, the suicide and the mental health addictions and all that kind of stuff. Just having a chat with your people and being there for them when they need it.
Yep.
That's about all I can think of.
I couldn't agree more. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your voice, your work, and your perspective. I know conversations like this can be hard, but they're vital if we want to see some change.
Yeah,
Um,
no, not a problem.
yeah. To our listeners, if today's episode made you think, we encourage you to share it, reflect on it, and consider how you can support those in frontline positions in your own community. This has been the Community Action Project Frontline Focus podcast, part of Comms 3100 at Cape Breton University. I'm Morgan Vassallo, and thank you for listening.